gentlemen, we are live! All right, live. We are live here, Night Nation. I hope that there's somebody out there listening. It's been quite an afternoon. We've had some late developments with Scott Frost being made the head coach of UCF. Trace is here with me.
Hey.
We have Jeff Sharon on the phone. Jeff, you still there?
What's up? I'm still here.
All righty.
The Maiden Voyage, a live Knightline podcast.
Yeah, well, we had to do it at some point, so I just figured this would be the best option of a time to do it. So it looks like we've got a couple people on.
Thank you for listening and tuning in.
Yeah, it's cool. So, Jeff, what is your analysis of all this?
Holy moly, what a day, huh? Couple of things. First of all, no one saw this one coming. No one saw Scott Frost coming. I know that a friend of mine who lives out west initially, who actually went to the University of Oregon, and I kind of feel bad that I didn't talk about this before. I kind of mentioned him like, hey, what do you think about it? And I was like, nah, no way. And then all of a sudden, there was the Dino Babers stuff from 48 hours ago. And I was one of the people who thought that, Dino just wanted to keep it quiet until after the MAC championship game, and then we would see things move real quickly. And then this morning, my cell phone goes off with a tweet from Brandon Helwig saying that he is hearing that it's going to be Scott Frost and he's going to be announced today. And lo and behold, he confirmed it. A couple other national guys picked up and confirmed it independently, and then UCF announced it officially. And I was amazed at how quickly that all went down. But Scott Frost, I'll tell you, he is the anti-George O'Leary in every which way you can possibly think of. So we talked about, you always want, when you're hiring whoever the next guy is, you want to go in the opposite direction. Boy, did UCF go in the opposite direction here with Scott Frost. I think it's a great hire. He checks all the boxes that I was talking about a while ago in terms of young, offensive-minded, progressive, and yet he has some really good pedigree. Played at Nebraska, of course, was a quarterback there, won a national championship. Played in the NFL actually as a safety, converted over to defense. He's coached on both sides of the ball as a coordinator, was a co-defensive coordinator at Northern Iowa. But the best part is, guys, and we'll talk a lot about this, is initially a wide receiver coach when Chip Kelly was at Oregon, and then moved up to offensive coordinator when Kelly moved on under Mark Helfrich. And I tell you, Oregon offensive coordinator with that offense, this is going to be a really, really sexy program to recruits and fans throughout the Sunshine State. I think it's a fantastic hire by Danny White and the UCF brass.
So, Jeff, before we go too much farther, you're now with the Black and Gold Banneret, another source for UCF information. Talk briefly about that, where folks can read your columns and you have an assessment of this hire today of Frost. Talk a little bit about your new webpage.
Right, so I started this new venture. It's called blackandgoldbanneret.com, B-A-N-N-E-R-E-T. And pretty much I'm doing the same thing I've been doing for a while, covering UCF. Of course, folks know me from covering UCF for a couple of different outlets in the past, but now I've decided to go independent, and it's right now it's just me. I'm hoping to bring on a couple friends to also write for the site. We're kind of like in sort of the 1.0 version of it. I'm figuring out how it's going to work, how everything's sort of looking right now. But I'm going to be covering. Obviously, this was the first big story that we've covered. I'll be at the press conference tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. And then as we go through the spring and then into the summer, we're going to ramp up our coverage of UCF sports, and we hope to provide some analysis of the big sports. It's trying to give you something that you don't get anywhere else, and then we're also going to provide some news and analysis of all of the other sports at UCF that I got to cover for so long and have developed relationships with. So blackandgoldbanneret.com is where you want to go, and you can follow us on Twitter at UCF_banneret, and that's BANNERET.
Hey, what's a banneret?
All right. I'm so glad you asked this. So a knight banneret in medieval times was a knight who fought under his own banner, his own flag. That's as opposed to a knight bachelor who was basically a mercenary, a knight who fought under someone else's flag. So a knight banneret was an independent knight, and that's what I hope to be. I'm a knight, and my blog is independent, and I hope to keep it that way for some time to come.
So new UCF Athletic Director Danny White has certainly hit the first hire, very noteworthy. Let's talk about assess more his first hire. 48 hours ago, we were getting ready to record the podcast, and all this Dino Babers news was breaking, which, by the way, probably means we are not required to watch the MAC title game on Friday night. And how things have changed so quickly. It was Jeff Collins, Greg Schiano was in the mix. Talk more about this hire and your thoughts on Danny White.
Well, Danny, we know from what you guys talked about and what he said in his press conference. He's the big mark that he made at his previous job at the University of Buffalo was coaching hires, and he was not afraid to shake things up. If performance wasn't up to standard with certain coaches, he was not afraid to bring the hook in and hire someone new. So his first hire, I think, in terms of the public reception to it. Now, obviously, I always kind of get a little queasy when people say, "Oh, this is a home run hire." We really don't know yet. Let's see what happens on the field first before we say it's a home run hire. But I will say this, that the public reaction so far among fans, among college football insiders, and among those involved in recruiting, analysts, reporters, and also head coaches, including some I've talked to, has been overwhelmingly positive. And that's part of the thing that we spoke about when George left was the excitement, the newness, the buzz around the program had died and had rotted. And it was time for something new. I don't know if any other coaches out there, maybe Dino, but I'm not 100% sure. If any other coach out there could have had the track record that Scott Frost has in terms of bringing that level of excitement. If you plug, like, say, Greg Schiano into the equation, familiar name, but I think there's kind of some stank on him from the Tampa Bay Buccaneer experience, even though I didn't think that was particularly fair because I followed what he did at Rutgers pretty closely, and I thought what he did there was miraculous. Dino was kind of, when we first started this process, he was kind of an unknown name to Central Florida. But if you follow college football, and especially if you followed it over the last 20 years, as I have, you know who Scott Frost is. He's the Nebraska quarterback. He's the Oregon offensive coordinator. And when you put Oregon and offense in the same sentence as UCF, that has big-time excitement potential.
Yeah, it was interesting when this name came out because I played at the University of Kansas during that time where Scott Frost was the quarterback in Nebraska.
That's right.
So the first year, or the last year of my career, and the first year that he was there, I believe, he was their quarterback. So that, was kind of interesting. He has been brought up. I heard somebody talking earlier today and mentioning that he was the first guy that Lawrence Phillips talked to after the deal there that he got into in Nebraska when he got in trouble and all that stuff. So that's kind of interesting, but that obviously doesn't overshadow the fact that he was in at Oregon and wow, what a potent defense or offense that was. And That's going to be exciting. I mean, you want to talk about getting the fans excited. That is going to excite fans. I think Bianchi earlier said shred 'em and spread 'em, or spread 'em and shred 'em.
Listen to this stat. During Frost's first season as Oregon's offensive coordinator, the Ducks set a school record total offense, 7,345 yards. For perspective, Knights fans, and you watched 12 games of this, UCF just averaged 268 yards per game. And the scoring offense ranked 125 out of 127. Breath of fresh air.
Yeah, put it this way too. This way. I dug into the numbers the last 3 years about Oregon. They have been in the top in the top 6 in total offense each of the 3 years that Frost has been the offensive coordinator. They've been in 2013, his first year. They averaged 565 yards a game. Like you said, it was a school record. They followed that up with 2014 with 547, and this year they're averaging 548. Now, this is the part that I like. You can put up a lot of offensive numbers, but usually teams that put up these kinds of like video game, Madden type numbers are doing it mostly on one side of the offense, rushing or passing. Oregon's been incredibly well balanced under Scott Frost. They average over 287 yards per game rushing this year. That's 5th in the country. And they're actually down in terms of passing to 35th at 260.4. Previous years under Frost, last year they averaged 321.5 passing yards per game with Marcus Mariota there. And the part that I really like is the scoring. 43-plus points per game all 3 years. So this is the most innovative and explosive offense that UCF has on its hands since Mike Kruzek and Ryan Schneider were in town. That's saying something.
Well, and you've been talking about Oregon, which, as we know, is a long way away from Florida and Central Florida. What do you think he can do in recruiting? That open period began on the 28th of November, goes through mid-December or so. How quickly can he get out there, and what difference can he make?
Well, it's a two-pronged thing. I do think that I know for a fact, actually talking to a couple of coaches, that he does have contacts in Florida, so it's not like he's an unknown quantity. It's hard. I'll be honest with you. It's hard to get athletes, even the best athletes out there, as kind of sexy a program as Oregon is. It's hard to get Southeastern athletes out there. Oregon's primary recruiting base is out there in California. But when you talk about California and you talk about Florida, those are two states that are very, very large with big-time football at the high school level that produce big-time skill position players, fast players. Frost has been a player representing Oregon out here in the Southeast for 3 years now. And when you can come to high schools and coaches that you already know, and you say, hey, look, you remember me from Oregon? You want to play at Oregon, but you want your mom to come see you a little closer to home. If you're in South Florida, Tampa, Orlando area, or Daytona, one of those places, come to UCF. That's where I am. We're going to be the Oregon of the Southeast. And that is a really powerful selling point. I think that Frost he's got at least the connections, and that's going to develop into even further connections. I'm really interested to see what his staff is going to look like, who he's going to bring on as his recruiting coordinators, who he decides to keep on, who he's going to bring on the defensive side of the ball. But you already have that in. And that was the thing with UCF, is that they were perceived, well, under George O'Leary, UCF was perceived as old-fashioned by younger student athletes. I think that has completely flipped on its head.
You think we might see a more creative approach to the uniforms, as Oregon is known for? This quote from former Oregon head coach, currently struggling with the Philadelphia Eagles, Chip Kelly, quoting, "Scott is as intelligent a coach as I have been around. He has all of the traits you need to be successful. He's motivated, smart, and very detailed and organized in his work." End of quote. My question to you, Jeff, is, and this is Jeff Sharon of the Black and Gold Banneret.com joining us on a live edition of the Knightline podcast. My question is, though, he's never been a head coach. How much of a learning curve might we see? And perhaps Knights fans will give him a pass if he struggles with the addition of the Knights that have just come off an 0-12 season.
Can I answer your question with a question?
Sure.
What did Houston think about Tom Herman when they hired him as the head coach? And he'd never been a head coach before. And now, look, 1 year, and he's already being talked about other bigger jobs and has one of the best offenses in the country. I don't think that's as big of a negative as people think. I think when you can come into UCF and you have and more or less Scott has a blank slate right now. He's worked under Chip Kelly. He's worked under Mark Helfrich. He's been in that Oregon system for a number of years. I'm a lot more comfortable with him being a first-year head coach, having spent the last 6 years, I think it's 6 seasons now at Oregon, under two of the best college football head coaches that we've seen in the country. Than if he moved up to if he moved from position coach to coordinator to head coach in the span of 3 years. I think he's well prepared to do it. He's also coached under some of the greats of the game. He played for Tom Osborne. He was a grad assistant under Bill Snyder. He played at the pro level under Bill Parcells. He played for John Gruden. So he's had a lot of exposure to great coaching throughout his career as a player and a coach. And you take a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It kind of, boy, I'm really getting in deep on this one. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Steve Kerr with the Golden State Warriors, if you will. You know, Steve Kerr played for Lenny Wilkins. He played for Phil Jackson. He played for Greg Popovich. He took those lessons with him from a number of different places, and put them together into a team that won the NBA Finals this past year. I think that it's not exactly similar, but still very similar situation with Scott Frost. Only, could you imagine if Steve Kerr had been an assistant, say, under Greg Popovich for 6 years, and then became the head coach of the Golden State Warriors? You know, how much more experience he would have had in that perspective. I'm not worried about his lack of head coaching experience at all.
What's funny, you know, he's 40 years old and has a couple of years on our new athletic director at just 36.
Yeah.
Boy, has it been a youth movement in a 2-week period of time for UCF, which for a while stretched there, the athletic director and head coach was George O'Leary. So things have changed very quickly around Central Florida and for UCF.
Yeah, someone sent out a funny tweet saying that the combined age of the UCF head football coach and AD is 75, which means that we're a little bit more experienced than George O'Leary, 69 years old in both positions.
So we've got some questions coming in off of the board, the dungeon board right now, and we've got a couple things going on the chat board here. Thank you to the one guy. I don't know how to say the name. It's Say Tago One, I guess. I don't know on YouTube, but he has reminded me about how horrible my KU team did against Nebraska for the last couple times that I was able to play them there. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. But Boston,
I'm sure, Andrew, you appreciate that very much, considering how good Nebraska was at that time.
Yeah, they were.
Frost owned Kansas at that time. Did they win all his games?
They were the national champions in '97.
Yeah.
So,
that was Tom Osborne's last year when they went 13-0. They actually split the national title that year with Frost at quarterback with Michigan. Now, here's a little bit of trivia for you, for all the old-time UCF fans out there. That year, UCF and Dante Culpepper went out to Lincoln.
Oh, yeah.
And he also brought that up as well.
Yeah, and had the lead at halftime over Scott Frost in Nebraska. And then at halftime, Nebraska was like, what are we doing here? And, and turned it on, but beat UCF. I think the final was 38-24 that year. But
they printed up T-shirts. They printed up
Yeah.
T-shirts and sold them in the bookstore that had the halftime score.
I wonder if Scott Frost remembers that. And when it came to UCF, I'm going to be the coach at UCF. Yeah, we almost got whooped by him back in the day. Not whooped, but if that team would have lost to UCF, it would have been a really big deal. So.
Well, yeah, because I think that was our first year as a 1A independent, but we did put the fear of God into them in that game, and I still remember seeing the highlights. And I think, what is this? Why is Nebraska having with trouble with this school called Central Florida? What is this? And that was when I was, I think, a freshman in high school. But they figured that out. And Frost is known, I think, in Nebraska circles more for that play against Mizzou, where he threw the ball to Shevin Wiggins, and the ball was batted around about 5 times and then kicked up in the air. And then a guy named Matt Davidson caught it in the end zone, and Nebraska tied the game at Mizzou in the final seconds, and they went on to win in overtime. And that saved Nebraska's national championship season. I think he's more known for that than probably anything else. But something that's also I forgot to mention one of the coaches, by the way. Frost didn't attend Nebraska initially. He was actually recruited to and played for very briefly at Stanford under Bill Walsh.
Yeah, so his line of people that he's either played for or coached with is pretty good. Somebody on YouTube
he's got
actually.
the coaching pedigree.
Yeah, somebody on YouTube here is asking, has this guy ever coached or been part of a program with a losing record? I would seriously doubt it, but we'll have to look into
that.
that.
What is it, coached or what?
Coached or been part of a program with a losing record.
Well, he was on the Buccaneers for a while, right?
Well, yeah.
So
he was on the Bucs in 2003. He was on the Jets. He also played for the Browns, so that probably clinches that.
Then,
in terms of his college career, in terms of playing, well, the Stanford teams under Bill Walsh, they weren't very good, but it was still Bill Walsh. And but once he got into coaching, he started his formal coaching career after his 2 grad assistantships at Northern Iowa, and they were very good. They were nationally competitive, national quarterfinals and the national semifinals the 2 years he was there. So as a coach, I don't think he's ever had a winning record. I don't think he's ever had a losing record.
Well, the impressive part to me, the biggest thing to me, is those 2 national championship games that his team at Oregon has played in the last few years. I don't know the exact years. I know one was it last year or the year before, with Florida State,
Auburn
right?
in 2011, and then in the playoff last year where they beat Florida State and then lost to Ohio State.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's enough as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. I'm so excited. Somebody on YouTube wanted to know also, what's your take on Oregon's, this was Christopher, what's your take on Oregon's 2016 recruited quarterbacks following him to UCF?
Oh, that's interesting.
That would be interesting.
I don't think that's very likely.
Because it may not be very likely, but we've got some quarterbacks that may not work out in that offense.
Well, here's a quote from a quarterback that is familiar with him, Marcus Mariota. Coach Frost has been a positive role model for me. I'm excited and glad that he has fulfilled a dream of becoming a head coach. His lessons reach further than the football field, and he will have an immediate impact on the lives of his new student athletes. It's certainly, with a quote like that, with the success of Marcus Mariota, puts a greater spotlight on what will be an interesting quarterback battle.
Well, yeah, but also, you have to think about, this is a 40-year-old guy. It's not a 70-year-old guy. So it's going to be, like with recruiting and things like that, it's going to be a whole nother ball game, literally.
Yeah, and obviously Mark Helfrich is going to have something to say about that, because that's a pretty good program out at Oregon still. As far as whether or not he can peel recruits off of Oregon, I don't know. That's something that's so difficult to say at this point. I do know that if you're a junior right now in high school in the state of Florida, and you're one of the better quarterbacks in the state of Florida, UCF just vaulted up your list of places to go.
That's exciting because, it hasn't been like that for, in recent memory, where a quarterback like that would want to. They want to go to Florida State, maybe even Miami. Right. So that's exciting. So
one of the things.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. We're live.
I was going to say one of the other things that people forget about that Oregon offense is that people think it's a primarily passing offense, and they kind of conflate it with with Mike Leach over at Washington State, formerly at Texas Tech. But it's really a run-based offense, and it's almost like how we talk about in basketball now, where in the NBA there's a lot of positionless basketball.
Is this another Steve Kerr reference? Because
yeah. Well, sort of positionless basketball. You in Oregon's offense, you have a lot of positionless skill players. They're not really wide receivers. They're not really running backs. They're kind of a hybrid of the two. And it's short passing that essentially equals the run and keeps the pace of the offense high. So we're going to see, my hope, you never know, but my hope is that we're going to see some big-time offensive numbers, the likes of which we haven't seen in quite a bit. Are we going to see, throwing for 400, 500 yards a game? Maybe, but not as often as people think, because remember, this Oregon offense, this Chip Kelly, Mark Helfrich, Scott Frost offense is a spread run offense. Yeah,
it's going to be exciting. I'm going to say exciting tonight like 80 times, so you'll have to bear with me. I want to get to a question
That's
here.
That's what we were looking for.
I want to get to a question here from Boston Knight. Boston Knight on the boards is a person that always comments on our threads, always carries on the discussion. So I want to thank him from that, and I want to thank him for sending in a question here. Obviously, the subject of assistance needs to be discussed. Who comes along for the ride from Oregon? Who are the top picks available on blown-out staffs for lateral moves? And what up-and-comers could be stolen from other programs? This is something that obviously is going to be the next thing is building a staff. So anybody got any ideas or any opinions on that?
Who knows who he's going to take? I mean, that's just it's interesting at 40 years old with the experience that he's had. What is his coaching tree? What are those contacts that he has? I will just say this. I would hope somewhere along the line, longtime UCFer Sean Beckton might find a home with Coach Frost's program. Would love to see that holdover from the current coaching staff stay. But who knows? Anyone's guess who he might be able to lure here to this job.
Jeff?
Boy, it's something that I haven't even been able to dive in that much in terms of finding who the defensive staff is going to be. I know that the coaching staff is going to meet with Scott Frost. Last I heard, they were probably going to meet him tomorrow. Although maybe I don't know, maybe they moved that up to tonight. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of places where UCF can go. I do know this is that defense this year under Chuck Bresnahan. I was hoping for the best case scenario to be, maybe they gave up some yardage, but they forced some turnovers, and they gave up a ton of yardage and forced no turnovers. And so I think that Scott Frost might be willing to do might be willing to clean house on the defensive side of the ball. Who else stays on board? I kind of tend to be partial towards the younger guys. So, guys like Mike Sims-Walker and Kevin Smith, who've been part of the coaching staff for a year or two now, I'd like to see them hang around. But again, it's just it's a story that we're going to have to continue to monitor throughout the month of December and into January as Coach Frost assembles his staff.
And don't you think that will happen very quickly with this recruiting period, such as it is? We're going to see bang, bang, bang on the announcements of new coaches.
I would think so. I mean, I think it's pretty important to get that done. I think that's one of the most important things to get done. Also, well, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but I want to point out that this guy on the message board on Rivals, the Dungeon, also this guy, Sad UCF Knight, he's on there all the time and talks a lot about in our conversations and all that stuff. We appreciate your question. I think we kind of talked about it there a little bit, but I'm going to read it. I'd like to know whether or not you guys think he retains Beckton or Barrett or both. So thanks for your question. I really hope that he, retains Beckton. I think everybody does. Beckton is a guy that's been around here for a while, played here, and
his son
played here, and he's honestly one of the best wide receiver coaches in the nation, as far as I'm concerned. He's he did a lot with all those guys that left as seniors this last year. So if anybody can stick around, I hope it's him for sure.
Not all of the press has been positive, Jeff, and our listeners listening to this live edition of the Knightline podcast. Don't know if you've read the Oregonian article by the columnist John Cansano. You can find it online. The headline, "Don't Like Scott Frost Defection." I like the word defection there. Not for him, not for the Ducks. And he starts with, had USC nodded in Scott Frost's direction. We'd have understood him leaving Eugene. Had Nebraska quit on Mike Riley, we'd get it. But as we wait for Frost's official announcement as the next coach at Central Florida, I have one question. Central Florida, question mark? You go to Orlando for Disney, not football. He continues to rant, seemingly stung by Frost leaving. But it does open the question when he mentions Riley, whether this may be a coach that gets success here and then moves on to perhaps Nebraska down the line as a dream job, or certainly a higher payday. And it'll be interesting to see when the numbers come out exactly what his payday is here in Orlando.
Yeah, well, of course, I think that it will be interesting, and I think that the contract will probably be pretty public after all this contract crap that happened in the last year with O'Leary and everybody else. But couple people here are asking questions. What about Jeff Godfrey helping out on the staff? That would be cool as far as I'm concerned. He knows a lot of people down there in Miami. Then I think Garrett was the person who asked. Yeah, Garrett Weiss. He's one of our big followers. He listens all the time. I know so because I see his name on the stat page. So I really appreciate him sending in a question. How does he recruit Florida? We talked a little bit in the very, very opening about that. But, Jeff, what do you know about him, about Frost recruiting in the state of Florida?
It's obviously different than if he had been on the East Coast and it had a little bit more geographical proximity to the state of Florida. That said, I think that we know that I know for a fact, talking to a couple of coaches in the area, that he is a face who's familiar around here. He has made his way across country to preach the gospel of Oregon football to the great skill position players that we have in here in the state of Florida. So it's not like he's a totally brand new face walking into high school weight rooms and saying, "Hey, there's a new sheriff in town around here." People know who he is, and he's got connections.
Well, somebody needs to go on to Oregon's website or something and see how many people. I have all my screens full here, to be honest with you, or maybe Trace can, to see how many Florida players are on that Oregon.
That was somebody. I'll have to find it again, but somebody had put that up.
Maybe somebody in the chat can figure that out for us.
Somebody had put it up on the message board earlier today.
Like to see where those players are from in the state of Florida, and how many there are, I guess. And that
and don't forget that may include guys who are recruits right now who haven't gone to who haven't enrolled in Oregon yet, and they're planning to in 2016. So. And I'm still in the process of trying to figure out, where it is that, for example, 247 Sports, whose name is Mud right now, in terms of UCF land, they have a pretty good database on who certain guys have committed with. But we'll do some more research on it, and I know that so far Oregon is able to pull easy 4-star guys, and Frost has been pretty big in terms of getting some skill position guys. Obviously, he being a former wide receiver coach there as well.
Obviously, we're not Oregon. We're not going to play like we're Oregon. But I think that this puts us up another notch. To be honest with you, this kind of a hire and having a coach like this. If we can win games and get the crowds back, I think this takes us to a whole nother level as far as even in the American. I'm not saying Power 5, but I'm saying in the American. If he can get that offense to work here at UCF, it's going to be absolutely amazing, and it's going to be fun to watch, and we're going to win some games. I mean, it's kind of hard not to when you're scoring 50-plus points, hopefully.
Yeah. And it's funny because I actually just found some of the recruits from Florida that Scott Frost has pulled into Oregon. One guy named Turcoy Sumler, who played at Columbus High School down in Miami. He's a 5'8" wide receiver, super fast kid, 4 stars. Actually, a relatively local kid, Charles Nelson from Seabreeze High School in Daytona. Another perfect skill player for Oregon, 5'8.5", 170, and super, super fast. And then here's another interesting name that actually comes up under Frost profile. Eric Dungy Plant High School, Tampa, Florida, a safety at 6'1". That name should sound familiar.
Yeah, I would believe that's Tony Dungy's kid, right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
When was Dungy in Tampa Bay? Did that mean Frost played under Dungy at that time frame? Would that have been right?
No, when he was at Tampa, no, that was 2003. That was the year after the Super Bowl, so that was still Gruden at the time.
Well, very interesting that he can open some doors in Florida for a lot of kids who are along in their recruiting process. The name Oregon, coming from Oregon, all across the country, they know Oregon, and they're going to be excited about what that could mean, what he could bring. Just by saying that will get another glance in UCF's direction.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon has the brand, right? You know, and about 10 years ago, they didn't really have the brand yet. Now they have the brand, and Frost is part of that, and he's bringing the substance behind the brand to the Southeast here at UCF. So, you know, like I said, if you're a skill position player, you're super fast, and you can catch, and you can run, and you're here in Florida, now you're starting to think about, hey, I can really show off my wares here at UCF potentially with a really, really quick, with a really fast offense. I love it. I'll be honest with you, I've been waiting 10 years for this.
So Lee Corso was on Channel 2's 6 o'clock Sports, and he said, just win, right? Just win. And, you know, several weeks ago, and well, really, this is a favorite pastime of UCF fans, talking about conference expansion, and then, of course, the season goes down the drain. Boy, the connection that he has, the energy and enthusiasm he can bring. Look how much it elevated Houston's profile this year to have the sort of success that they have had with the addition of Tom Herman as head coach, playing in the American Conference title game on Saturday. Now, that cupboard was not as bare in Houston. They were a 6-7 win team last year, so he didn't come into a completely empty situation. But I think this can reinvigorate the fan base and the program in the eyes of this conference realignment.
I still do not think the cupboard is bare here. I said this last Sunday. I don't think that the cupboard is bare. I think people gave up. And I think that once somebody lights a fire under these guys, you're going to see a lot more playmakers come out. Big time. I think that there's going to be a lot. I want to get to a question here from Night Sweat on the board. I have a question that pertains: what positions are going to be need to be dramatically improved to implement Coach Frost's offense? Our O-line was terrible this year, and this is the most critical position group. Or is quarterback equally important? I'm asking with the talent we have today. Jeff, do you want to answer that?
I'll tell you exactly where there's going to be an overhaul. It's going to be in the offensive line. O'Leary's system was predicated on the prototypical, you know, NFL-style offensive lineman. Big, can get, you know, can run block and can protect the passer, basically by standing still and just not letting a guy get around him. But if you look at Oregon's offensive line, they've gone from it's a totally different way of thinking of offensive linemen. They're smaller, they're more athletic, they're not as heavy, but they're better athletes and they're stronger guys. Okay, they can't just rely on their size, because to run that offense, you got to be able to move. You can't hold up the entire offense waiting to get downfield. You got to get down there with them. So look for. I really do foresee a complete overhaul of the offensive line. We're going to see guys that may not be the big, huge bruisers that we're used to seeing. Guys that are a little bit smaller in terms of the measurables, but really quick and strong and quick is what we're going to be seeing. Once Scott Frost is able to get those kinds of guys moving in the offensive line, that's where things will start to get interesting, because you know he's going to get athletes, and you know he's going to figure out how to get a quarterback in here that can run this kind of an offense. And one other thing about quarterbacks too is I don't think we're going to see the Blake Bortles, Justin Holman style prototypical 6'5", big, strong, stand back there like a statue and deliver a pass quarterback very much under Scott Frost. He's going to get a guy who's hopefully still big, but also quick and can run the football as necessary. Think, Marcus Mariota was the prototypical perfect quarterback for the Oregon system. The guy they have this year, who transferred over from Eastern Washington, Vernon Adams, he's smaller than Marcus Mariota, and it took him a little while to sort of figure out the system, but he's figuring it out, and he's gotten better as the season's gone along. So I would almost say, believe it or not, it's kind of funny. You know who would have been kind of the perfect guy to fit into this kind of an offense? It would have been a guy like Jeff Godfrey when he was the quarterback.
True. Jeff, Sharon joining us from blackandgoldbanneret.com on this live edition of the Knightline podcast. Good time, Andrew, to mention that we are going to try this live thing again. We'll have it the regular time that we're normally recording on 7:30.
7:30 on the 13th. It's going to be a video podcast, so you'll actually get to see us on video, see our faces.
Do people want that?
I don't know. Kyle Israel's going to be here. Carson Engel's going to be here, and then Trace and I. So it'll be cool, I think. It'll be the first time we've done that as well. Thank you guys for listening. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be here for quite a while. But I see that, like 40-some people are listening right now on YouTube.
Considering we threw this together at the last moment to react to this, and we
thank you for being on here, guys. I think it's awesome. I'm going to try to get maybe I'm trying to figure out if somebody will let us call him. I'm trying to work that out here. I'm texting and doing all kinds of stuff here to try to get some more information.
Are you getting Scott Frost on the?
No, I wish I could, but
speaking of Scott Frost, Mike Bianchi posting on the message boards, UCFsports.com, that he plans to have Coach Frost on his radio program 8:35 in the morning. Of course, his debut press conference at 9:30 going to be streamed by UCF. I'd like to mention
right now Bianchi has a little bit more pull than we do.
Well, slightly, yes.
So, we're working on it.
But I'll tell you,
we're nipping into heels.
And you mentioned earlier, Jeff, some egg on the face of 24/7 Sports. Everybody had a source that knew somebody that knew something. But who stayed consistent in relaying information was Brandon Helwig of UCFsports.com, and that's why it's a consistent source for information. He tries not to run with rumors. He tries to confirm things. As someone who was a radio television major at UCF, there used to be, long ago, a two-source rule in journalism, and now people just write anything they want on Twitter. And, of course, it goes off, and nobody will pay attention to these people. But I think in our eyes, I think there's some people who really dented their credibility saying that they knew for sure. So I want to, point out that Brandon did a consistently good job in relaying what he knew when he knew it, and tried to be fair and upfront about it.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get to talk to him here in a little while. That's who I've been kind of trying to get. I think that we're going to get him on the phone here in just a little while. Jeff, man, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Jeff was supposed to be on the podcast this last weekend, and we actually did the interview before obviously we record it, so we do the interviews and then we do the podcast. The rest of it, we talk to Kyle, and then we talk to whoever else, our insider that we have on, and then we go and record the podcast around those things. It's kind of, puzzled together. But Jeff's interview was right before the Babbers, whatever, story came out. So we had talked to Jeff and done all this speculation, and then all of a sudden, like literally as we hung up with Jeff, the whole thing kind of changed, so yeah. I felt really bad about not having him on the podcast. We were going to do it as an extra towards the end of the podcast, and then I thought about it, and everything that we talked about was pretty much irrelevant, unfortunately.
I'll be missing you guys on the video show, but hopefully I'll be watching. And like I said, it's a really big, it's a great day for UCF today, and now there's finally some excitement surrounding the football program once again, and I think our long national nightmare is going to come to an end. I can't wait to meet Coach Frost tomorrow. I'll be at the press conference at 9:30, and we'll see what he has to say about the program and what he's got planned for us in the future.
How can folks follow you, and where can they find all of your information?
All right, you can go to blackandgoldbanneret.com. That's BANNERET. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Sharon, and also follow the Banneret at UCF_Banneret, UCF_Banneret on Twitter.
You picked a good time to launch a web page, with a athletic director hire, and you picked a time with some news and not just a dead period.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I can't take credit for that. It wasn't my intention to launch this on the heels of an 0-12 season, and then all of a sudden new AD, new head coach. But I'm glad it worked out that way, and I received a lot of great support from folks in the business, friends in the business, and also our community of UCF fans who've been really supportive, and I just hope I can serve them as best as humanly possible, because they've been, very good to me throughout the years, and all the folks that are listening or who are out there, just thanks again for everything, and I just like you guys, I do this for them, and hopefully we'll continue to do these kinds of things. Me coming on your podcast and all that for a long time to come.
Yeah,
So
try doing that podcast every week as the losses built up. We would look at one another before we went on and went, how are we going to talk about this? And we were predicting the games for about half the season, and then we just scrapped that part because that became futile. So it's hard to launch in the midst of this sort of dismal season, but new hope is on the horizon.
That's the best part. Hope springs eternal.
All right, man. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Andrew, Trey, thank you guys. Have a good show the rest of the way. I'll talk to you soon again.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye, fellas.
Well, it's good to get some reaction. You know what? This is fun to go.
It's cool.
Live,
yeah, I like it.
On the
I've got a
Knightline
lot
podcast.
more to do because I'm watching everybody's stuff. In fact, our stream stopped for some reason. I see that everybody's pretty much back.
They bounced back.
Yeah, I don't know if YouTube gives you a time limit or something, but it stopped at like 49 minutes, so I don't know. I'm going to make a phone call here.
Do we need dialing music?
I guess, Trace, maybe you can talk or something. I'm going to try to. We're going to try to get our next guest on here. I sent him a text saying that he was going to be live straight from the answer of the call. So we will see how this works out. And then later on, obviously, I said on the message board that we would put a phone number out and you can call us. I was planning on doing this about an hour. Well, it's almost been an hour, so I think we're going to do it a little longer. I'm cool with it. I'm loving it. It's fun.
Reading Frost's bio on GoDucks.com. If you haven't done this, and of course you're going to hear all of these statistics, he has helped orchestrate an offense in Oregon that averaged 55.6 points and better than 632 yards of total offense through the first 2 months of the season when it was operating on all cylinders before completing the regular season. Second in the country in total offense, 565 yards. Fourth in scoring, 45.5. Ninth in rushing, 273.5. And that was a good point that Jeff had, Andrew, that we think of offense and Oregon's prolific passing game, but it has a pretty good running game as well. And it's going to be exciting to see what kind of players that he can recruit. A different style of player, certainly, than we have been accustomed to the last decade or so with George O'Leary.
All right, so we're...
All right, dialing music.
Yeah, this is kind of weird the way we're doing this, but it's kind of the only way because I only have one phone, so let's see if this person answers. This person will be somebody that...
Yeah, guys, what's up?
Hey, it works.
that was weird. I'm sorry to have to do it like that, but hey, how are you?
Brandon Helwig,
yeah, I'm doing,
publisher of UCF Sports.
I was listening, I guess, to the first 35 minutes or so, and then I got the text, and I was listening through my phone, so I kind of turned it off right then and everything. So I heard what you guys and Jeff Sharon were actually talking about at the onset of everything.
So, hey, do you have unlimited? Do you have unlimited texting and all of that on your phone? Because you must have been a busy guy these last couple of days.
No, actually, it's funny. I don't. I have unlimited data, and I have unlimited data because I have an old grandfather Verizon wireless plan, and I can't give that up because I use that for a lot of stuff. A hotspot of uploading video on the fly. But I'm limited to 1,000 texts a month, and I just went over today.
Yeah,
So I was a little bit frustrated when you were kept on texting me, but I didn't have a polite way to say.
Leave me alone, Andrew.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to use Twitter.
$9.98, $9.99. Yeah. Leave me alone.
Something like that. Yeah. I got you.
So that's why you don't text me back sometimes.
He's counting them.
It's all good. So, Brandon, how did you learn about this situation? You don't have to give us your sources, obviously, but you were one of the first people that I know of that knew anything about this. how did it come about? Where did this name come from? For one thing, it was totally under the radar as far as I'm concerned. I hadn't heard word one about Scott Frost. So tell us a little bit about that.
When you look at the names that were kind of circulating over the past week or two, as far as UCF, no one at UCF was talking. No one really knows Danny White anyway. He hasn't even. First time he was on campus was the press conference, but he wouldn't be talking to anyone. As in passing, hey, we're looking at these guys, blah, blah, blah. He's not talking. No one at the university was talking. The search process was incredibly tight. As far as I know, it was primarily Dr. Higg, Grant Heston, and Danny White. So those guys kept everything close to the vest, who they were looking at, who was interviewing, what have you. I was sitting with coaching contacts, et cetera, and, names started to kind of surface. This guy's in the mix. This guy's probably going to interview. This guy might be, the favorite. Those kind of things were leaking out primarily from coaching sources, which can be great sources, but then again, they're not always what they seem. Last week, a list of 4 names seemed to be, was being relayed. That was Bowling Green coach Dino Babers, Gene Chizik, now the UNCD coordinator, and Jeff Collins and Randy Shannon, both assistant coaches at Florida. Those were kind of the names that were sort of the popular names that people were saying, we're hearing these guys are going to interview. And, it's 2 of those names. I got good sources close to Jeff Collins. I got good sources close to Gene Chizik. And so I was kind of hitting up, those kind of sources about everything. And that was kind of the assumption of where things were going into this past weekend. I guess I learned on Friday, I just assumed that they were going to fly to different locations and interview candidates. But I learned right before the weekend that they were going to do all the interviews in Atlanta at Parker Search, which is the search firm retained to do everything. So that was kind of an interesting development. I was pretty sure I had a couple Bowling Green sources that indicated, Dino Babers, he was heard he was supposed to be interviewing on Saturday. They didn't have practice. He went out of town. It was kind of a wink and a nudge, like, I know where he is, you know where he is, kind of connect the dots. So I was pretty confident he was in the mix. The other names, as far as interviewing, I could never get confirmation that they actually did. And then the crazy day was Sunday. When early in the afternoon, I kind of started hearing some things that, hey, someone told me Greg Schiano's in this thing. He interviewed, that might be the guy. And so I started hearing that. And actually I made a post about it in the dungeon about, 3 or 4 o'clock. I can't remember, just saying, hey, I just kind of started to track this down. This could be a name to watch. And then that night, some other individuals reported that Dino Babers, Bowling Green coach, had accepted the job and he's expected to be the coach, and announcement was probably going to come the next day. And I was kind of like, I kind of know he's in the mix. It wasn't like a name that you hadn't heard of, and I was kind of questioning my sources. And I started hitting up everyone I know at UCF, and there's people that, if there was information that was out there, maybe if they couldn't say, you would kind of get a wink and a nudge saying, it's a handshake deal. There was nothing. I mean, people were adamant that it was 100% inaccurate, not true. And so you start to wonder, well, are your sources just kind of saying that? Trying to do a smokescreen. It's an uncomfortable situation because Bowling Green still was playing. They played the MAC championship game on Friday, but I kept on hearing saying, no, it's Schiano. Schiano's the guy. And I started hearing that from Schiano's sources. And as far as I know, that wasn't anywhere that he was in the mix. From what I think happened, and what UCF will probably say tomorrow, the press conference will probably say Scott Frost was their number one target all along. And I'm not really sure what happened, but it does appear to me that Schiano did interview, and he may have had an opportunity to accept the job. He obviously did not. There were some rumors, and I was being told that he was going to be interviewing in Miami, and he was trying to use. I heard from the Schiano camp that he was saying he had a UCF offer, to use as leverage with Miami to entice Miami to jump on him and offer him there as well. I never heard from a UCF source that he was offered, but connecting the dots, it does seem like that's what happened. I was hearing that from the Schiano camp, and then late last night I heard, if Schiano didn't accept on Monday, it's probably not going to be him. And I had someone tell me they're going to move along, and it's going to be someone else, and it's not Dino Babers. It's no one that's been linked to the job before. So I was bracing for a name that was just going to be a complete wild card. And, you know, I had an idea of it was a coordinator. It was top secret. He interviewed in secret. Nobody knew. And I kind of had a clue that I didn't have his name, but I knew to be ready for something early this morning. Like something was going to come, whether it was Shiano or this unknown candidate. Then I got news of it. I don't even know. I jumped out of bed, and it was 7 o'clock, 7:30. I don't know what time it was, but I got news that it was him, and it was official, and they finalized everything overnight, and it was going to be announced in a matter of hours. So that's kind of how I came. I mean, it was just crazy. You know, you're hitting up everybody. I'm finding every assistant coach I ever knew, you know, ex-UCF coaches, other guys they put me in contact with, asking if they hear anything. It's just been a crazy, crazy process.
And you have to pause to try and verify what you can. You've talked before about this world of social media. People want to be first. There are some media outlets that have some egg on their face that were way off base on this process.
I was hesitant. And when there was things with Shiano, I didn't want to be the guy putting it out there on Twitter. Hey, I'm hearing that, you know, I wasn't really obsessed with the Twitter glory or whatever. You know, I wanted to make sure I was right. And you hear whispers and hints and nudges and whatnot, and you kind of can piece it together. But until you're 100%, and you got multiple people backing it up, saying, and you got to make sure the people you talk to have access to have direct knowledge. You know, you can't be talking to someone who thinks they talked to someone who overheard something. And that's kind of what happens in these coaching searches. You get that kind of info about candidates, and the candidates themselves they'll leak their names to people, and they'll have, you know, their friends in the coaching community get a picture. They want their names out there. They want to be on Twitter, you know, by these people tweeting, oh, I'm hearing so-and-so is a serious candidate, and, you know, all this stuff. But when we saw a little bit about that with Bruce Feldman a few days ago tweeting names, and it just really wasn't true. But you don't know what to believe unless, you know, I'm not on the phone with Dr. Hitt. Dr. Hitt's not texting me every night. Danny White's not calling me to let me know what they did today. When you don't have that, it's very hard to know what's really going on. And I'll be interested. I really haven't heard the full story of how Scott Frost came to be. You know, I was aware of him, you know, but just with him being on the West Coast, not really having any apparent ties to Florida. He has recruited Florida a little bit with Oregon, but I just didn't think he would be a primary consideration. And so when everything happened today and this morning, I'm kind of scrambling. I mean, I didn't research things. I researched the other guys like crazy. You know, I kind of knew everything about them, watching their old interviews on YouTube that were posted, press conferences, you know, their background, and I was having to catch up on Scott. I mean, other than just in general, which I think any college football fan knows about him. So I'll be interested. I don't really have the full story of how he came to be in terms of connecting with UCF. I kind of get the sense he was probably a Danny White guy. He kind of fits the mold of some names that are brought to the process. But again, maybe Scott Frost himself saw the opportunity at UCF, and I know he was really in the mix at Syracuse. But when you look at the two jobs, yeah, I know Syracuse is Power 5 in the ACC, but so what? I mean, the opportunity to win and win big is much better and greater at UCF when you look at the location and everything going for it.
Syracuse is at the lower part of the Power 5 as well. There's definitely programs in there that you're not going to, you know, win bowl games. You're not going to even go to a bowl game in a lot of them.
Yeah,
you know,
Donovan McNabb days, you know, and those days are long gone. They're a basketball school, you know, Power 5 basketball school. That's really about it. It's going to be really tough getting athletes to upstate New York. It's cold. No one wants to live there. Their facilities aren't very good. Their recruiting base isn't nearly as good. You really don't want to live there. So I can certainly see why you would prefer Orlando, Florida, as Syracuse, New York.
It was absolutely a smokescreen, though, because I mean, it came from out of the blue. I mean, I never expected this guy. So, I mean, I don't know.
That's just a testament, I guess, to UCF. What I was saying all along when I would make posts on Denver, like, well, UCF isn't talking. They're keeping the search process tight. I don't want people to think. I was just trying to pass along what I was hearing.
Right.
And I would try to preface it as that. It's like, this is what I'm hearing. You know, I generally trust the people I'm talking to. I'm not trying to put stuff throw crap onto a wall, which other people do. But I'm trying to say, this isn't UCF. They're keeping the search process very tight. I'm giving you the best of what I think is going on. And if things started to come together over the last day, I probably, in all honesty, I might have been a little bit more bold with the Schiano talk, but I'm kind of glad that I didn't, just because you don't really know what's going on. I do think he may have had an offer. It does seem very strong that he may have had an opportunity. And just with Scott Frost, no one really had it. No one knew. The people close to him weren't talking. I'm really kind of curious how it's going to be explained of how that came to be, because they did such a fantastic job keeping that under wraps.
Well, some 12 hours after you broke this information on the Dungeon message board at UCFsports.com, have you had a chance to reflect on it and think, what do you think of the hire? I know you've been so involved in chasing down information, but what do you think of the hire?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think the whole Oregon mystique and offense, and it's like others you guys were talking about. The misconception is more of a run base than people give it credit for. I haven't dived into how he is as a face of the program, personality wise. There's always going to be a little bit of a learning curve for a first time head coach. I'm very anxious to see what kind of staff he can pull in. That's going to be very important. Without any leads on anything, I think if he can, to bring in an experienced assistant, maybe someone who's been a head coach before, I think might really help. But I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
You mean you don't have all the names of all the new coaches yet? Because people must know that now.
There's a couple of names. There's one name I'm pretty sure is going to be on the staff, but I haven't confirmed any of that yet. But I do think that's going to – I think we'll hear news on that very soon, because the recruiting period is only going to last for about another week and a half, and once we get towards the end of next week, it shuts down for a full month. You can still, contact recruits electronically, social media, but that's it. You can't go on the road. You can't meet in schools, homes. You can't do any of the face-to-face stuff, which is so important. So, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure out. He's going to have the press conference. He's going to meet with the team. They're probably going to finalize whether they're going to, retain any of the current UCF stuff. I don't know if they will or not. If they did, it'd probably be one or two max, but it may be zero. It's too early to say. I'm just talking about the full-time, assistant coaches. I would imagine people like grad assistants and those kind of guys will probably stick around for the time being. But he's going to hire probably, I'd say, at least right off the bat. You would think at least three to four coaches now, so they can get on the road, start recruiting. There's championship games in high school this weekend. They can be on the sidelines for. They can go on the road all next week. I don't know if it's too quick. They could have an official visit if they wanted. Now, it might be too soon to get that together, but they could do that coming up these next 2 weekends. But, yeah, I imagine we're going to hear some names here in the next 24 hours or so.
Well, there's all kinds of names that people are throwing out there for sure about that. And I think that'll be huge when we, do start to find out who those people are. I mean, those are putting the pieces to the puzzle, together. How do you think that Scott Frost's offense is going to work here at UCF, given the players that we have? Because they're not all going to go away. You're not going to recruit a whole new team. So what do you think that he's going to try to do right off to try to get this team going the right direction?
Someone was asking me that today. It was really an 0-12 team. The team wasn't very good. We saw what happened. There were definitely some deficiencies at key positions. There was injuries and some things kind of led to that. But, areas like the offensive line, speed on defense, depth at receiver, that stuff's got to improve. It's going to be really important to get as good of a recruiting class as you can possibly get, because I have a feeling, UCF needs speed and needs some other things. I think a lot of those guys are going to be playing next year. How quickly he can turn things around with the offense, with the personnel. You've been recruiting for a pro-style offense for years here. He's a smart guy. He's not gonna try to change things completely. I'm sure he's going to, early on, of course, everyone's going to adapt to his system or whatnot, but He's going to adapt things to the personnel that he has. And he may not have everything that he wants right off the bat, but he's coached offense, he's coached defense, played quarterback in college, went to the NFL and played the defensive back, special teams. This guy he's well-rounded as a coach. They're going to try to, fit things as the best suited they have for the personnel returning. It'll be interesting. I'm curious about quarterback, whether, Justin Holman would be his guy.
That actually was going to be my my next question to you. Do any of our quarterbacks fit into any of his offense? I mean, Holman's really the only one. Maybe Harris can run, but
Yeah, but then when you get into Justin Holman, you kind of wonder if he's going to be a senior next year. If there is a quarterback he could bring in.
Maybe a junior college guy.
Maybe a highly touted freshman, would you just kind of roll with a guy that's going to be, is it maybe more beneficial in the long run to get a guy experienced in what you want to do? No one's expecting UCF to come out and win 10 games next year. It's really, really hard to say as far as putting a number on it. I think if you're a UCF fan or not, you want to at least get in the hunt of being eligible for a bowl. I'm not saying for sure you'll be 6-6, but you at least want to have you don't want to have a 2-10 type season next year. You at least want to ideally get to 6 wins, or at the very least at least be within a game of that. So maybe, but if you're looking to build for the future, it's better to get young guys experience. If you get maybe one of these highly touted quarterbacks that maybe has appealed to your vision of the offense you want to try to build, and maybe this guy's, hey, you come to us, sign with us, they can, build a recruiting class around them, they could build a team around them going for the future. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm not going to predict anything really to know until we kind of see what happens here, whether Holman's the quarterback next year or maybe McPatty might, be in the mix for what he can do running the ball. His offense might be better suited for him, whether, Schneider or Harris will have a role. It's really too early to say.
You know the UCF fan base just about as well as anybody out there. You interact with so many of them on UCFsports.com. These have been, in Danny White and now in Scott Frost, 2 pretty well-received hires by the UCF fan base. Does that change the expectations game? You talked about sniffing around maybe a bowl berth next year. Do you think fans will be realistic on the work that needs to be done to get things moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I mean, as I kind of touched on a minute ago, you at least want to be in contention for a bowl. You don't want to be playing the last month of the season, knowing that you've got absolutely no chance for anything. I mean, you see what some teams were able to do this year. You got Tulsa, you got UConn, teams that that were kind of coming off some down years, but they were in contention for a bowl game. You got to get these guys on this team believing they can win again, and you just want the guys to start feeling good. It was tough. These guys haven't been through it before, even if they didn't play primary roles. They were backups on teams that win a conference championship. So when things started going south, I think that kind of didn't help matters. And not to say you want players that have experience with losing, not really, but it was unknown territory for a lot of these guys. So, you would hope, with the right recruiting class, the right coaching staff. I'm not real crazy about that one and done game in Michigan next year. It was scheduled for a completely different reason. It was scheduled with the belief that UCF would keep the thing rolling. Justin Holman be a senior quarterback that year. They just were going to keep on, operating at a high level, double-digit type win seasons, and that would give UCF an opportunity to make a big splash by upsetting Michigan on the road. Now, when you look at the 0-12 season, you're like, I don't know. I think it's such a good. I know that UCF didn't get paid very well to go to Ann Arbor. I think it was $1.4 million. I forgot what it was, something like that payout, but. Maybe you don't really want that game on the schedule next year after all. But, yeah, you would hope so. It's really hard to say without, seeing how the team returns and health-wise and recruiting class-wise. But you would hope that at least have a shot at a bowl game.
We'll talk about the team a little bit. There's been talk that the cupboard is bare. Andrew has pushed back on that on most recent editions of the podcast, saying that there is some talent to work with here. You suffered along with all of us through a very long season. What's your sense of the talent level, the returning players? What do we have coming back?
Well, there are some bright spots, but, there are some areas that I think UCF has to get better in. Quarterback, to me, is still a big question mark. Justin Holden wasn't helped, with a lot of the things this year, but it's really hard to say, what tier he's really on. He had the benefit the year before of having an excellent wide receiver core. Obviously didn't have that at his disposal this year, had a bad offensive line. So I'm kind of wondering where he is, in terms of, is he necessarily a lock? I know we were talking about a minute ago, depending on the offensive style. Is he really a lock to continue as UCF's quarterback going forward? I'm not sure about that. He definitely has a chance. I think he has the best opportunity of anyone currently on the roster. But I'm just not 100% convinced. The offensive line's got to get, it was worst offensive line probably UCF has had, and I don't know how long. I mean, that was, and there might be other reasons, as far as that goes, I'm not really sure. I think after a certain point, the season the way it was, maybe guys aren't given the right effort. I don't know. I really don't know what happened with the offensive line. There were some recruiting misses, some depth issues. That's an area that's got to get better because they obviously did not perform. I think you need more speed at linebacker. Defensive line wasn't getting much of a pass rush at all. I think there are some guys that have promising futures, Jemias Pittman, a defensive tackle, but beyond that, there's not a lot of names that are going to get you excited going forward. So you're going to need some help there. I think there's some talent. I think within that secondary, guys like Kyle Gibson, I would certainly hope would start to live up to their accolades they had coming out of high school. I know he kind of got injured towards the latter part of this season. Rashard Causey was highly touted coming out. Mike Rogers redshirted. They had high hopes that he could play this year. He redshirted, maybe at a safety position. There's some guys there that you would hope can put everything together. You need more wide receivers. You didn't have that much depth and injury, and we got to see if Jordan Akins is coming back, and how he's going to be, what his timeline is from the ACL surgery that he had in October after injuring it in that Furman game. Running back wise, it was a banged up unit. It was not very deep this year. So there are some talent issues. They're definitely going to need to take advantage of every one of those 25 scholarships this year.
Talk about, in contrast here, the challenge of the week-to-week grind of covering a team that loses week after week, and then this flurry of activity the last 2 weeks that's put a lot of wind in the sails of UCF fans. Talk about that contrast and what it's been like to be you in the midst of all of that.
Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, it was, I use the word entertaining, but in a way there were things that happened that, just one thing, the season wasn't dull. I didn't mean entertaining like you were getting enjoyment out of it, but it wasn't dull. I mean, let me put it that way. It was one thing after another with, losses. And then one thing I said earlier to somebody else, as far as the fan base goes, I think they took it pretty well. I mean, as far as the 0-12 season and O'Leary stepping down and, people get upset about it, but, UCF won a Fiesta Bowl 2 years ago. They're back-to-back reigning conference champs. If you didn't have that level of success, I think people would have taken it a lot harder. People would have been a lot more despondent of what was going on. But I think most people kind of took you kind of had to laugh about it sometimes about how quickly things went south. I know some people get angry, but, I think that kind of helps a little bit as far as morale. And, and it became clear, I guess, early after that Furman game, whatever, plans that they had or people thought they had for the program with O'Leary as AD and Brent Key as head coach. It was, even if it wasn't announced, I mean, it was becoming clear, like, that's not going to happen now. So there always was going to be change coming at the end of the season. And I think fans are going to be excited. I mean, this is something that the majority of UCF fans have, a lot of them haven't ever gone through with the way the university has grown and how many students have graduated. And, a lot of people kind of jumped on the bandwagon, graduates, whatever, since, 2004 when O'Leary retired. So it was kind of exciting, I think, just to kind of learn about a new coach, his mannerisms, new staff, new offensive, defensive systems, be renewed interest in spring practice, spring game, recruiting, all this stuff that had been kind of stale, I guess you could say, the last few years under O'Leary, or you kind of knew what you were getting out of it. I think there'll be a lot more excitement around UCF, not just the fact of what Scott Frost brings, and just learning everything about the program now.
And so next steps, Scott Frost is officially unveiled Wednesday during a press conference, and you'll be there. How much more will you be tagging along throughout his first day with UCF?
Oh, I don't know if they let me. I don't know if I can follow him around after the press conferences, but I'll kind of get an idea of what his schedule is. Obviously, there's a team meeting in there. He'll be meeting with the coaching staff. I imagine he'll be letting certain members of the staff know whether they're going to, be needed. Some may be retained temporarily. That's usually how it works. Some guys will be, thanks for, obviously what you did, but, I got someone else coming in. You're no longer needed. I assume we'll hear news of that tomorrow, in terms of that goes. But I would think, they'll be setting up shop and getting some coaches in here, and then they'll be hitting the road, I'd imagine, at least by, Friday probably, to try to hit this recruiting trail and get some recruits lined up in this recruiting class.
Well, Brandon, man, thank you so much for joining us. It was short notice and all that stuff, but we wanted to get your words for sure on this because it's a big deal, and we've been talking about it all day on the dungeon and on the other boards and stuff that you have up there. You do an awesome job covering UCF. We couldn't do it without you, and I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, guys, and I love what you guys. This is a new. I like this. The live aspect of it. It's live, so you can kind of feel like you're interacting in real time. But then again, I know it's going to be archived, so people who can't listen live, you can go back and listen to it like one of your regular podcasts. So I hope you do more of these live shows.
Andrew is being on his best behavior tonight.
Yeah,
too,
yeah. I've got my. That's why I'm not talking too much because I've got my swear.
There's no delay.
There's no delay on this. It's live. It's totally new for us, but I'm digging it. I think after we let you go, actually, we're going to see if anybody will call in. We're going to try that out. I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm going to have to definitely lay some ground rules, I think. So I'll have my finger on the button if anybody gets out of control, I guess. But we'll see if anybody will call. I don't know. It could be fun. Thank you, Brandon. We
Great
really
job.
appreciate
Great
it.
job.
All right, guys. I'll talk to you later.
We will
Take
see
care.
you soon.
Well, how about that? 2 live guests
That
on
was
the
cool.
live
Yeah,
edition of the
that was
Knightline
definitely
podcast.
cool. All right, people. Well, the number is up there on the board on the screen. It's actually you can use my photography number there, Andrew Fegley Photography, right on the card. It is 407-205-7427.
We've talked so much about Scott Frost and his college career. Do we have a call?
No,
Oh.
I just
You're pointing to your phone. I thought a call was
I
coming
needed to
in.
say something. I wasn't
Okay.
done there. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we'll try this, calling in thing. If I do use Google Voice, so you'll have a message when you call. It'll pick up. You have to say your name. So say your name, whatever name that you want everybody to hear. That's clean. We're not going to use any profanity. Trust me, it's hard. It's hard for me not to use any profanity, but we'll keep it clean. And I really want some people to call in and ask some questions. I think it'll be awesome. So yeah, I mean, there's people on our stream may have.
Is it buffering?
May have some issues, so we will see if this keeps going. Hopefully it does. If not, I'll restart it if we have issues. But
Are we back?
yeah, turn off your sound if you call. Chris just asked, and you can hear us. And yeah, so whoever, the phone is open.
All right.
Go ahead and
Well, that could be exciting.
yeah.
What I was getting ready to say is that we've talked a great deal about Scott Frost's playing days, his experience. Oh, the phone is ringing.
There's our first one. Here we go.
Call from.
It's,
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail,
this person
press
wants
2.
to remain anonymous. Hey, how you doing? You're on the Knightline podcast live.
Hello.
What's your name?
Oh, wow. Hi, my name is Joseph. I'm a junior at UCF right now. I've been following UCF football forever. I was 9 back in 2004. I didn't think I'd have to live through another. I didn't think I'd have to live through another season like this.
Do you remember that one vividly? Was it painful at 9?
Yes. The Buffalo game was the worst.
Oh, he remembers specific games.
The Buffalo game was the worst. Oh, man. It's just funny. I'm sure my father's listening to this right now, even though I should be finishing my paper that's due tomorrow. But
well, thank you for joining us. You're the first caller on the first live episode of the Knightline podcast.
That's cool. You can.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
First one, first live
There
show.
are no prizes. There are no prizes.
No prizes, unfortunately. But you can tell everybody you were the first one. So
what do you think of the Scott Frost hire?
I'm sorry? Scott Frost. I woke up today. I live with some friends. We all go to UCF, and we were all talking about it. We were like, oh, finally, we can get something to be excited about.
And what do you like about him?
Oh, about him. Honestly, I really did enjoy George's defense-minded football. That's the kind of stuff that made the Georgia Bowl game so exciting. I'm excited for the offense that I'm hoping Frost can bring.
And do you think that this year's team can be coached up by Coach Frost and his yet-to-be-named assistants and get us back into some bowl contention and beyond?
Oh, I'm optimistic. I'm always optimistic. My friends and everyone, they still ask me why I still went to every game this year, and I'm like, because I'm optimistic. Something good will happen. I definitely think that he'll be able to coach all my peers up.
You weren't one of those guys with the bags on your head in the student section, were you?
He's the banana. He's the guy that dresses as the banana.
I have one of those black and gold wigs bought in 2004.
Oh, okay.
And I decided this season I wasn't going to wash it till we won.
Oh, it's a little rank. That's a little rank right there.
Well, awesome, man. Thank you for calling. We really appreciate it.
All right, thanks. I've been following the podcast since it started. Good luck, guys, and I hope this live thing can happen more often, too.
It can.
Tell your friends.
Definitely tell your friends.
All right.
Take it easy.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. That's pretty exciting right there. That worked.
Number one caller. We got another guy, Chris, I think, was going to say he was going to try next. So
all right.
This is great. This is so fun. I'm totally glad we're doing this.
We're just going to keep talking.
Have you ever heard me in this good of a mood before?
I sat with you for a few football games this year, so this is a sharp contrast from that experience.
It definitely is. So.
That's why I was concerned about profanity, because I know what it's like to hear you screaming.
Well, I want to keep.
But this is more excitement.
I've always wanted to keep this, a nice, clean thing, so you can listen to it at work. You can listen to it in the car with the kids.
And we get a lot of people. We met people at the game Thursday that listen driving and that are followers of the podcast. Of course, we'll have our regular edition on Sunday. We're working right now to bring some insiders that could. The phone is ringing again.
Oh, they only let it ring once.
Call back.
Call back
if
that
you're
was.
Listening or read up on the message board.
That was
Call
it.
back.
That was the right number.
We'll have our regular podcast. We're working right now to get some insiders that will be able to talk about Scott Frost from his various experiences in life. Let's see if I can make this point that we haven't really talked about. We mentioned
Somebody tell
briefly,
me if the stream is still working, because it looks like it's kind of weird on my screen. So if you're out there and you're hearing us, tell me if it's working decent or not. I can restart it or something.
Maybe you just should restart it. Frost was drafted in the 3rd round of the NFL draft to start his playing career by the Jets. And he played in regular season games on defense. So we've been talking a great deal about offense.
Really, he played on defense?
He played on defense for the Jets, the Browns, and the Buccaneers.
All right, here we go. Oh, from Atlanta. We got a caller from Atlanta.
Atlanta area code.
Hey, you're...
Call from...
Oh, yeah.
Night in Atlanta.
Night in Atlanta.
To
this is
accept,
him.
Press 1. To send
All right.
a voicemail, press 2.
Hey, Night in Atlanta. How you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
We're great,
We're
man.
pretty good. You're right in Atlanta right now?
No, I need to actually change my name. After the Fiesta Bowl, or at the Fiesta Bowl, I got in touch with some UCF alumni who hooked me up with a great job interview back here in Orlando. And my wife and I moved back partially just to get back in town and watch the games.
All right. Well, I see your name on the boards quite a bit, and I know that you listen and all that stuff. We appreciate it. You're obviously listening tonight, so thank you very much.
Long time, first time, huh?
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. You're the second caller on the show. What do you think of this live thing? Do you dig it?
I dig it. I remember when you guys started to experiment, 6 weeks, 2 months ago, farting around testing the live stream.
And I really thought it'd be a cool thing for you guys to try out. And I've gotten a real kick out of it tonight. It was cool having everybody call in live and listen to Brandon and everybody talk live. There's something to be said for something a little less polished and produced than what you guys usually put out. It just, I don't know, it feels pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah, well, I'm digging it, man. I'm having so much fun. This is cool. So do you have a question for us?
Yeah. Like I mentioned, my wife and I moved partially back to Orlando to get season tickets after being in Atlanta for 10, 11 years and watch, and we upgraded to the Cabana this year. And I know season ticket sales and donation had been an issue with UCF. So I was curious to get you guys' take on how you think this kind of hire might re-energize the donor base. I want to give some props to whoever wrote the press release today. The first one or two lines were linked to getting season tickets or renewing your season tickets. I thought that was a brilliant move on a press release that was just anticipated to come out. So interested to hear you guys' takes and what other solutions or things that UCF might be able to do to increase donors and ticket sales. And I've always wanted to say that I'll take my answer off the air.
Okay, right on. Thank you very much.
Thanks for calling. Thanks for listening. To that point, I believe that the hire of Danny White in the short term is more important, as we had on the Knightline podcast a few weeks ago an insider from Buffalo talking about Danny White's experiences in Buffalo and trying to re-energize and build a fan base there. I think it's more important what he does in the months ahead to connect to the fan base and to re-energize Central Florida. The impetus on Scott Frost, we'll see what his first recruiting class is like. We'll see what some of the hires and see if there's some energy that comes to that. Of course, he's ultimately got to win and show improvement and coach up the players that he inherits, see what he brings in. So for me, key is what Danny White does, and he began to establish a reputation at Buffalo for trying some new things. It'll be interesting to see what managerial changes, if any, he makes, who on total staff, from marketing to ticket sales, etc., that he keeps, or what fresh blood that he brings in. This is a program, even out of that Fiesta Bowl year, attendance dropped a bit, and of course not helped at all by 0-12 this season. The caller just mentioning that he has been a part of the black and gold cabana. There need to be a lot more efforts to connect to fans and a lot more marketing. I know as I travel across Central Florida, if you're not out on the east side of Orlando, you can feel very remote. Living in Sanford, working on the west side, you've got to seek out information on UCF. They don't always make it easy in terms of marketing blitz. But ultimately, winning cures all.
Yeah, and winning puts people in the seats, and I think that's the most important thing that's got to happen here. And with a guy like Frost, I mean, it's going to be exciting. Again, I'm saying exciting, but the more money that UCF can make off of the seats that they sell, the better amenities are going to be at the stadium, the better, places we can go and play, things that we can do. Money even gets involved in recruiting. We've talked a little bit about that in the last couple weeks, that, they have to go certain places to recruit kids, so you have to have money for that. So fans in the seats, I think that's going to be huge, and I think Frost is the right guy to do it. Danny White, I mean, I have to give it to Danny White for doing this, for going and getting a guy like Frost. I mean, whoever would have thought?
He has debuted very successfully and not officially starting until, I believe, the 14th.
The next thing that he needs to do
December
is make our basketball team start winning. We're going to try to go tomorrow night to Stetson. I don't know how many other people are going to want to do
right
that.
Up the road, in our Volusia County Knights fans.
We could probably go take that place over. I don't know how many Stetson fans, are planning on being there, but...
He has sent in a few short weeks a clear message to the fan base and to all associated with UCF athletics that he wants to make smart hires. That is his reputation in Danny White. hasn't even officially started in that transition from Buffalo to Orlando. So very interesting. I think, though, that it will be interesting to see what efforts he does to connect to the corporate community, what sort of sponsorship deals that he can bring in.
I'm still saying that Danny White should close up the cabana. Just put all the
Our
parts.
previous callers over.
I
in
know,
there,
I
yes.
know. You know, I'm sure there's some of you that hang out over there, but I think we should just put all the pieces back and maybe put some more seats with seat backs in or something. I don't know. It's just not my favorite thing. We've talked about it. All right, so we have the phone open. Anybody can call.
And, of course, we'll be back on Sunday night with
our
our regular edition of the Knightline podcast, and then December 13th.
live again on December 13th.
You know, the pressure's on us now to be live this Sunday and every Sunday.
Yeah, I don't
You
know
realize
about that. I don't know about that. I mean, we could at some point. It may turn into that. It may. It seems like people like it. I'm having fun. It's a little bit even more difficult for me because I've got even more stuff to watch and more stuff to do.
You are watching a lot of things.
I've got 3 computer screens here. I don't know if anybody has ever seen a picture of the inside of 1148 Studios, but we will at some point have to put that up there.
Any questions on the board or in the YouTube stream that we can
I gotta look
speak
here. Oh yeah, somebody already. Alberto does not like my idea about the cabana, for sure.
Well, you know, to me, what the and
Chris, if you got voicemail, call again because it's open.
yeah, it just means
If
somebody
it's-
was on the phone.
Yeah, if there's 2 people on the phone, 2 people try to call in at one time, it's going to be voicemail. So you gotta try to like a time like right now where there's nobody on. Chris, try again for real.
Real quick, back to Scott Frost's days at Nebraska. Senior, 1997, a Johnny Unitas Award finalist. Oh, there we go. Third caller.
All right. Oh wow, this one's from a ways away.
Call from. To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail.
Hello, you are on the Knightline podcast live.
Hey guys.
How's it going? What's your name?
Good, good. I'm actually listening to you, and it's like a delay.
Yeah,
on the podcast. So I was like, okay, was this a voicemail or am I actually live?
Yeah,
And you
you're
said live. I thought, let me turn off.
Well,
the
you're
sound.
live with us, and in that little delay, you'll end up being live on the YouTube stream.
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of a delay. So, did you tell us your name yet?
Yeah, it's Chris Carter. I'm a former UCF player from the McDowell-Kruzak era.
Oh, okay.
Really?
And I'm actually calling you guys from Toronto, Canada.
I saw that on my phone when you called. I said, I was like, wow, this one's from a long ways away. So, what are you doing
Didn't
up there?
know where that area code was, did you?
No, but it says it on my phone. So,
yeah, I'm super excited about the hire. I mean, I'm even though I'm a long ways away, I'm UCF diehard from through all the years. I just moved back to Toronto about 3 years ago, and I follow every game online. I'm kind of like you. I've got like 3 or 4 TVs watching 3 or 4, 5 football games at a time. So.
Refresh our memory of your time here. What position did you play, and what were the years you were with UCF?
I was there 86 through 91, started with McDowell. McDowell was head coach through the whole time. I was first 2 years I was a wide receiver with Neil Beasley was in front of me, and I played with Bernard Ford and Teddy Wilson and all those guys, Aaron Sam, Elgin Davis. And they were all seniors when I came in, and played with Shane Welsh, Rudy Jones, and moved to outside linebacker my last 2 years.
And if you've been watching UCF all these years, you know better than most how much this program has grown from the era in which you were here to this era right now. Fans don't realize that because so many new students, so many new people have come to the program in the last decade or so. It's completely different from your experience. Talk a little bit about your time with the Knights.
Well, I mean, back in those days, I mean, we thought we were, we were the next generation from, the guys that actually started the program. Because McDowell came in, and we started the move towards one. Our big move was from Division. It was still Division II when I came, so we moved from Division II to Division I AA while I was there. And of course, the goal was always to get to 1A. And we thought we were like the movers and shakers from the early days, from like 1979, 80, when they were playing in muddy fields.
But you were a mover and shaker. You were taking the program to its next level.
Yeah, and like I said, that we were playing in front of 30,000, 40,000 people in Citrus Bowl, and we thought that was amazing. For me, coming from Canada, I just came down from just to get the U.S. college experience. And so for me, it was the big time. I didn't care that we were 1AA. It was the U.S. college football. The goal was always to get the program. We used to dream back then of, someday this program will be like Florida State, Miami.
How were you recruited?
How
were you recruited? What caught your eye about UCF in that time frame?
I was never recruited. I actually came to UCF to play baseball. A funny story. I actually never even knew about UCF. Came to Florida on a one-way trip. I was supposed to be picked up by buddies of mine. We were supposed to go around from Florida to California, back up to Vancouver, and back to the east coast of Canada. Well, one by one, these guys, all bailed or whatever, and I was down to spring break. And not to take up a lot of your time, but make it long story short,
it's all good, man. You can have as much time as you want. It's all good.
Well, I don't know how long you guys have a stream for. Is there a time limit on the show?
Nah, there's no time limit.
It's an awesome concept, though.
No time limit. Keep talking.
So anyway,
this is
make
great.
a long story short, nobody showed. So I said, well, I'm going to go to Orlando where the only person I know is. And got a job, played baseball all summer, and actually got a walk-on scholarship to play baseball at UCF. Of course, met McDowell. And, old Gene with the Bear Bryant hat sitting on the desk, And he asked me, he says, son, you ever play football? I was like, oh, yeah, of course. He says, you want to play football for us? I'm like, well, shoot, you're paying the bills. Of course I'll play. So that's how I got to play football at UCF. And, it was just a dream come true. And
you long story shorted that, but that's about the way it probably went in his office, wasn't it?
That's exactly how it was. It was the exact words. He goes, son, you want to play football for us? And I was like, well, sure. You're paying the bills. And that's exactly how the conversation went. And I just, I got, I think, a half academic, half athletic scholarship. I don't know if you guys know Jim Smith, who was the long time in the administration, accounting. They helped put it all together, and it was a great experience. And live and die UCF from that day on.
What did you major in, and what are you doing now?
Engineering. I was engineering, and I was on the student senate. I was did my 4 years there. I came back, and I'm a financial advisor and a business consultant now. So.
All right, this may be a stupid question because I'm good at asking the stupid questions sometimes. Is there college football going on up in Canada?
Oh man, that's a bad question. Yeah, of course. Like most of the big universities have college football. Yeah, they didn't when I. In fact, the reason why I came to Florida is the college I went to, which was like it's like the Stanford of Canada. It was an academic college. They didn't have football.
What's the level of quality of the play? What's the play quality like? What would be the equivalent in the States?
I would say it's probably Division II. Division II, maybe 1AA. You'll get there's probably, I couldn't tell you the exact number, but there's probably 20, 25, maybe 30 college football teams in Canada. So you're going to get maybe 4 or 5 guys that are maybe like draft worthy. There's guys that play, the really the best college we have in Canada plays mostly in the is it NIAI or something like that?
NAIA.
They play mostly NAIA,
Yeah.
Simon Fraser. They play mostly U.S. teams, mostly division. Well, I guess they're independent.
Yeah,
division
they're
US teams, but-
lower because they're not the NCAA, but there's great football going on over there. In fact, one of my good childhood friends is a head football coach of an NAIA team, and is usually in like the top 10 of that division. One question that I had for you, well, I didn't actually have it. Garrett had it on the message board here on YouTube. Are you a Toronto soccer fan or an Orlando City soccer fan?
You know what's funny? Not a huge soccer fan at all. But I have to say, you know, I grew up in Orlando, and I've only been to Toronto 3 years, so I'm not even a Blue Jays fan. I'll cheer for the Blue Jays, but I am an Orlando City soccer fan. I'm all about everything Orlando. You know, that was my home for a long time. So I tell people, you know, Orlando's as much as home as anywhere, really. For
Now,
me.
what about the CFL? Are you you're Argonauts fan, or what's going on there?
I'm an East Coaster, so East Coasters aren't really anything a fan of Toronto. But I'm a Montreal LOS fan.
Okay, all right. So you live in the Toronto area or outside, or did you say you live on the
I'm
east?
like right in the middle of Toronto.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So give us a weather report. What's the temperature right there?
6 degrees, and I'm sorry, that's 6 degrees Celsius.
It's still
For you guys,
cold.
That's about
It's really cold.
40 something, I guess. I don't know what the Fahrenheit conversion is.
Well, yeah.
It's raining. Not too bad though for December 1st, I guess it is. So.
Yeah,
No
that's
snow.
cool. Is the Grey Cup
But
still going?
the first week of cold weather, I went to Mexico. I just got back a couple of days.
So what did you think of the Scott Frost hire?
Here's the thing. I mean, I first heard about the Dino Babers, and I was all over it. And I was like pumping it up. I had the stats on my Facebook. I had this Wikipedia. I thought this was going to be a great hire for UCF. Babers. I'm like, well, that's great, and that's probably as good as we can get. And then, the rumors came it wasn't official, and I'm like, okay, wink, wink. Yeah, I know. Don Shula Nick Saban was never going to leave the NFL for college football either, So I'm thinking that was just a matter of time. And then I got the news this morning. I said, I knew this guy was in the mix for some Power 5 team, but I said, this is probably the best hire we could ever get for what this guy brings. I mean, the lineage of coaches he played for. I mean, 2-time national champion. He's played offense and defense in the NFL. The best running offense for the last 6-7 years he's been a part of. If there was ever a hire better than Babers, this would be it for us. I mean, I think this would it would be even beyond my expectations. And I was telling guys all along, I said, you guys are underestimating our ability to get a coach. But this was outside the scope of what I thought we would get as well. And I think it's just an excellent hire. In fact, I mean, it's such a good job by Danny White. I didn't even know if I should give him credit for it because it happened that quickly. That I was like, is Danny White even a part of this? I mean, is this I just said I said UCF Athletics and Dr. Hitt, great job. But I was like, it happened so fast. I was like, Danny White even a part of this? It's so fast. But,
you bring up a good point, really. Yeah, I mean, because the UCF has been saying that they, with Coach O'Leary's resignation, that it would allow them to begin that coaching search earlier, utilizing the search firm in Atlanta. But you raise an interesting question, whether that search firm and the UCF brass had prepared some of those names and what role White played. Perhaps that'll be a question that comes to him at Frost's introductory press conference on Wednesday. But it's a good point that you raise.
It would be a great question to ask because this thing came together so fast. I mean, unless they were talking about it the minute, they were interviewing the guy, like who would be your, ideas for coach. I mean, he just got hired how long ago? Was it a week ago? 2 weeks ago, maybe?
It seems like a whirlwind. What's the last UCF game of any sport you saw in person? Where were you?
It was in the Bright House. Last game I saw was, it was 2009. Oh, no, that's easy. Last USC, I went to Ireland.
You went to Ireland?
Oh, hell yeah. I went to Ireland. I wasn't missing that game. That was a great week, by the way.
I'm sure you had a good time in Ireland.
Too many Jameson shots with too many old ex-players. Yeah,
That's,
it was a great week, and unfortunately, we didn't win that game. I thought we should have, but...
So UCF plays at Michigan
and
plays at Michigan this upcoming football season. Maybe that'd be a little road trip for you.
Yeah, I would love to go to that game. I don't know if I want to go there and see the result that might be pending, but I would probably go there just to cheer anyway.
Hey, Chris, do you follow us on Twitter?
I follow all you guys. I got everybody, I think, on my Twitter, especially in the last week.
Okay.
I might have added 2 or 3. Which are you guys?
We're Knightline Podcast, UCF_Knightline Podcast. So I just want to make sure because I want to be able to get in contact with you again because this has been great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love
You've got
football.
A lot of information for us about those older years of UCF football for sure that we don't have. So that would be cool.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean, like, there's a lot of guys that I stay in touch with. One of the greatest things about, like, Facebook is that I got in touch with, like, 70 to 80 of, former teammates and guys from that era. So, we all sit around and, talk about UCF football and, I guess I even started an alumni group for players, of just old players that just would talk about the new team and where it's going. And I think, like I said, this is, the season we had was obviously as bad as it gets. But you kind of see that happening with the. I mean, we graduated 10,000 or lost 10,000 receiving yards last year.
Yeah, well,
between the 4 or 5 receivers we had.
Yeah, it's gonna. I think it's really gonna turn this hire is really gonna turn up the fire under UCF football. I'm horribly excited.
Everything will get better.
Yeah.
I mean, the recruiting. People are always recruiting Florida. Look, the guy doesn't have to recruit in Florida. He came from Oregon's offense. I said that recruits itself. If you're an athlete in Florida, you can't not want to play for this guy.
And you're going to have the chance.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of players that. I mean, you're going to have the chance to play because we definitely need playmakers. I mean, if they're going to recruit and have to have something to say to the recruiter or to the kids they're wanting to recruit, playing time for sure. You could probably place, right away in a lot of positions. So, thank you so much.
Any household this guy walks in, if there's a guy that doesn't want to play for him, he's not a player.
Yeah. Yep.
Because this guy will make you a star.
All right, man.
That's what he does.
Thank you so much for calling. We really appreciate your call. It was awesome.
No, guys, great to be on. I didn't mean to take up so much time. Have you got your Twitter on me? I'm on the YouTube thing here. Is the Twitter on here anywhere? It's UCF_Knightline podcast, or
it's just UCF at UCF_Knightline.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'll add it to my Twitter and. Great to be on. Do you guys hear me okay? I wasn't sure about how my service would come through.
That's perfect. It's all good. Everybody heard you really well and had a lot of nice comments there on the YouTube thing about you being on. So we definitely want to talk to you again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it was just kind of a stroke of luck. I just happened on this, and I thought, man, this thing's live. Yeah, I'll call in.
Cool. Absolutely. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We're going to try to see if we can get some other people to call in.
Listen.
All right, man. Thanks much. Go Knights.
All right.
All right. Well,
I love that story with Gene McDowell.
That was awesome. That was awesome.
It just sounds like that's the era when I went to UCF. So, I certainly wasn't a player, but that was Gene McDowell. That conversation, he just told that like that happened.
That was awesome. All right. Well, the phone is open. I know that there's other people that have probably been trying to call because I've got a couple voicemails in there. So we'll take a couple more phone calls. I'm not going to we don't want to do this too much
Couple
longer.
minutes before 9,
getting,
so maybe.
Yeah, it's getting towards 9 o'clock. Let's take one more call. So whoever gets in next.
You know, you have some swag. You ought to give this next caller something.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
you have that swag.
I will give the next caller, whoever gets in, if there's anybody, I will give the next caller something that says Knightline Podcast on it. And it's cool.
Yeah.
It can definitely be used for tailgating and in your everyday life.
That vast marketing budget.
Yeah,
we have.
Unfortunately, I don't have any budget. But by the way, there is, if you see up here the fan funding, believe it or not, on YouTube,
Can you click and give us
there's
money?
a thing. There is a thing to click and give us money.
Hey, it is Giving Tuesday.
It is, yeah. So I don't know. That's a little bit far-fetched, I know, but it's only a couple bucks. You know, I mean, you know, we could do a lot more. This does cost me money.
Yeah.
I do pay for it.
The server
web
fees
hosting,
and-
servicing, all
Yeah.
that stuff. So
I like this live format.
I do
it's,
too.
It's good
This
to
has been
have that.
awesome.
We're going to be back on Sunday with a regular edition of the podcast, working to get some insider guests that can relay some information and background on new head coach Scott Frost. And then, of course, live on December 13th.
I think on Sunday we may possibly have a guy that has Nebraska ties and that knows Scott Frost, or at least knows of him and knows what he did up there and can talk a little bit about that. So, all right, one more call, whoever the next caller is, and then we're probably going to put this thing to bed for the night.
This was a quick 2 hours.
Yeah, this has been great.
This has been fun.
This is awesome.
And to be able to talk just about UCF is great.
Yeah. Where else can you get 2 hours of live UCF talk?
As we've talked about on the podcast, this has been challenging to do week in and week out.
Right.
I mean, we're fans. We sit in the stands. We know what everybody's been going through, and it's hard to key yourself up and gear up and preview the opponent when you know we're about to get steamrolled. So this has been an exciting 2 weeks, and it seems certainly like we've had 2 successful hires in new athletic director Danny White and new head football coach Scott Frost, and these announcements are going to continue to come. We're going to have coaches named in the days and the weeks ahead, and then the recruiting. All eyes will be focused on that. As the countdown to signing day then begins.
I'm excited about UCF football again. I'm excited. I mean, I'm absolutely excited.
And you know
about
what?
UCF
Doing this
football.
show and getting good feedback, meeting some folks at the last home game, it does put some wind in our sails as well. That to know that people care about the team and certainly the product that we're putting out.
Garrett has been one of our most vocal people talking on the little YouTube message board. Garrett, give us a call. We need
Throw
one
that
more
number
call.
out. Do they have the number?
Yeah, 407-205-7427. 407-205-7427. We've got time for one more caller, so we need to do it quick.
And then what
we've got
happens
about
with this
5 minutes
YouTube?
left.
We rack it, and it'll be out there, and you can.
I think YouTube automatically archives it, so I hope that that's what happens. But I believe that that's what happens anyway. So one more call. We got 5 minutes left, and
like a telethon,
or maybe not.
Or maybe not.
So yeah,
we know people are listening.
We'll give
this
this
was pretty exciting for not having done that and not given much notice. I mean, you just sort of threw out to me and messaged me, "Why don't we go live tonight?"
Well,
okay, why don't we?
Yeah, I discussed it a little bit with Jeff Sharon earlier in the day, and I discussed it with you, obviously. I thought that, since it was breaking news, and then, hey, listen, if breaking news happens that we can talk about, this is the perfect opportunity to do live stuff, and I will try to get it out on Twitter and everything else. I'll try to make that link work a little bit better the last time. Yeah, people are calling you for calling Garrett to call. So somebody said lame though. Hey, I don't call it. My only rule. Oh, you don't call in. Okay.
That's Garrett's rule.
Yeah, Garrett doesn't call in. That's a bummer. But I know Garrett listens all the time, so we appreciate you, Garrett. We appreciate everybody that has been here. Maybe now would be a good time to just hang this up for the night. I think it's been awesome. We've done
2 hours of
2
live
hours of
talk.
live.
We thank Brendan Helwig, publisher of UCFsports.com, who has been all over this story, all over everything related to UCF, does an excellent job, really strives to stay fair and balanced in his coverage and provide fans the best information, UCFsports.com. And then, of course, Jeff Sharon with his new webpage. Folks, the more of these sites that are out there, the better it is for folks like Chris in Toronto to follow the program.
Absolutely.
I lived in Alabama in the late 1990s, and, boy, it was hard to follow UCF. There wasn't a lot of information out there.
Well, we are trying to bring that to people, so we have done what we can to do that. We do it every week.
Every week. Basketball game Wednesday. If you're out at Stetson in DeLand, look us up. You can find our faces on the webpage, UCFKnightlinePodcast.com, and look us up. We would love to talk to you. Get your thoughts on the basketball team, and of course this new hire. There's going to continue to be reaction to that all day tomorrow with the Wednesday official announcement of Scott Frost as UCF's 10th head coach in program history.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody that tuned in tonight. We really, really appreciate it.
Let's do this again.
We will. We will do it again, I promise. Next coming up on the 13th, and you're gonna get to see our faces if our stream works. It's been a little bit weird tonight, but thank you very much for hanging in there. This has been the first episode of UCF Knightline Live. Thank you very much. We will see you later.
Go Knights!